Here's a number that makes no sense when you first hear it. 31 million views. Now, on its own, that number doesn't sound unusual. YouTube has thousands of channels that have racked up 30 million views. Some of them hit that mark in a single month. A few hit it in a week. But those channels have one thing in common. They feed the algorithm constantly. Daily uploads, shorts stacked on top of shorts, thumbnails designed in bulk, teams behind the scenes managing uploads, titles, and engagement around the clock. Pacific Northwest Hillbilly has uploaded around 107 videos across 15 years. That's it, 107, over 15 years. By YouTube standards, that's less than one video a month on average. And in the more recent years, the uploads have been even slower than that. Some videos took 16 months to complete before a single frame got posted. And yet the 31 million views just sit there, stacking up quietly, growing steadily, pulling in new subscribers every single week, without a single viral stunt or algorithm chase in sight. That's not how this platform is supposed to work. Except for this channel, it clearly does. And understanding why requires going back to the very beginning, to a regular guy in Hillsboro, Oregon, who pointed a camera at a broken machine and just started filming. August 2009. YouTube was barely 4 years old. The platform was still figuring out what it was, a place for funny clips, skateboard fails, and the occasional home video that happened to go viral. Nobody was treating it like a career yet. The idea of building a loyal audience around heavy equipment repair in the Pacific Northwest wasn't just unconventional. It genuinely hadn't crossed anyone's mind as a viable strategy. That's when the Pacific Northwest Hillbilly channel appeared. No fanfare, no launch announcement, no polished intro video explaining what the channel was going to be. Just a guy in the Pacific Northwest who wanted to document himself building and fixing things. His channel description, which has barely changed since, says it plainly: "Watch me build and fix things," while attempting to film it. That's the whole pitch. There's something almost laughably straightforward about that description when you compare it to the way most creators position themselves today. No brand promise, no niche statement, no target audience analysis. Just a guy, some machines, and a camera doing its best to keep up. What makes that description interesting in hindsight is the phrase "attempting to film it," because that's not false modesty. In those early videos, it was absolutely true. The production quality of the early catalog reflects someone who is far more comfortable operating heavy equipment than operating a camera, and that authenticity is exactly why the people who found the channel stayed. The audience for this kind of content isn't looking for a host. They're not looking for a personality who has mastered the art of the YouTube hook. They're looking for someone who actually knows what they're doing, someone they can watch work through a problem in real time, make mistakes, figure it out, and get the job done. That person doesn't need a ring light and a scripted cold open. They just need to start the camera and start wrenching. And for 15 years, that's exactly what happened. Somewhere along the line, the Pacific Northwest Hillbilly channel adopted a motto that runs completely against the conventional wisdom of YouTube growth. 4 words. Simple, but in practice, almost impossible to stick to: quality over quantity. Those words show up on the channel's profile. They've been there for years, and they're easy to say. Every creator says something like that at some point. What most of them mean is, I upload good content, not just a lot of content. What Pacific Northwest Hillbilly actually means is, I will not post until the project is finished. No matter how long that takes, that's a different thing entirely. Think about what that requires psychologically. You're watching other channels in your general space racking up subscribers by the tens of thousands while they post 3 times a week. You're sitting in your shop in Hillsboro staring at a project that's been in pieces for months, knowing that if you posted a "here's where I'm at" update video, you'd get views and attention and maybe a few hundred new subscribers, and you choose not to. You sit on it, you keep working. You post nothing. That kind of patience is almost unheard of in this space. And it's almost certainly the reason the channel's audience is as loyal as it is. When Pacific Northwest Hillbilly drops a video, the people who follow the channel know they're getting the full story. Start to finish, problems included, no cliffhangers designed to pull them into a 3-part series with a sponsor drop in part 2. Just the complete build, documented honestly, beginning to end. That's a trade. You grow slower, you give up the subscriber bumps that come from consistent posting. But what you get in return is an audience that trusts you completely, and on YouTube, that trust compounds over time in ways that raw subscriber numbers don't fully capture. If you've never watched the channel, here's the honest summary of what you'll find there. Heavy equipment, automotive projects, power tools, Things that are broken, rusted, seized, or otherwise in a condition that would make most people walk away, and then the long, methodical process of bringing them back. The range of projects is genuinely broad. There's a Datsun 240Z tucked in among the heavy iron, treehouse builds. A vintage drill press from decades past that gets stripped, cleaned, and restored with the same seriousness you'd give a machine that cost 10 times as much. Tractors, farm equipment, geese. Apparently at some point, the channel's content tags include ducks and geese alongside metalworking and construction, which tells you something about what kind of property this man is working on. But the heart of the channel, the stuff that really defines it, is the heavy equipment, specifically the Caterpillar machines. The Cat 2116 skid steer project is a good example of how this channel approaches a build. The original engine was dead, not just worn out but genuinely beyond economical repair. Rather than sourcing a direct factory replacement, he went a different direction and started test-fitting a Yanmar diesel to see if it could be made to work. That's the kind of decision that a lot of people would research for a week, call a parts supplier about, argue about in forums for another 2 weeks, and then maybe attempt. He just started fitting the engine and filming the results. That skid steer video has pulled in nearly 1.5 million views. Not because it's dramatic, not because something exploded or went badly wrong, because the audience for this content finds genuine satisfaction in watching someone work through a real mechanical problem with real skills and come out the other side with something that functions. And then there's the bulldozer. The Caterpillar D47U project deserves its own section because it represents something that almost no other creator in this space would be willing to do. The D4 is a small track-type bulldozer. Caterpillar's been building variations of this machine since the 1930s. The 7U series is an older unit, heavy iron from an era when machines were built to be repaired rather than replaced. When Pacific Northwest Hillbilly acquired this dozer, it was not running. It was a project. The kind of thing you buy knowing full well you're committing to a significant amount of work before it ever moves under its own power. What followed was 16 months of documented work. Not 16 months of uploads, 16 months of actual labor before the engine was ready to start. The first start of the Caterpillar D4 video captures the moment the machine finally came to life after all that time, and the title of the follow-up, First Time Operating a Bulldozer, Finally Putting the Cat D47U to Work, carries the weight of that timeline in just a few words. Finally, after 16 months. Finally. That word tells you everything about what the channel is. It's not about making content about machines, it's about actually finishing the machines and letting the camera come along for the ride. Most creators would have broken that project into 8 episodes within the first 3 months. There would have been a part 1, a part 2, The Engine is Worse Than We Thought, mid-series pivot episode, and a sponsored finale. Pacific Northwest Hillbilly just kept working, posted when there was something worth posting. And when the D4 finally fired up, the people who were watching understood exactly what that moment meant because they'd watched the whole long road that led to it. That's not content creation, that's documentation. And on YouTube, documentation of real work done by someone who actually knows what they're doing is increasingly rare, which makes it increasingly valuable. In June 2024, Pacific Northwest Hillbilly posted a video with one of the more unusual titles in recent YouTube memory. I bought an unensed 70-year-old Rolls-Royce crate engine. How bad could it be? For a channel built around Caterpillar equipment and Pacific Northwest farm work, this felt like a departure. Rolls-Royce isn't exactly a brand you associate with Hillsboro, Oregon. But the engine in question wasn't from a Silver Shadow or a Phantom, it was a Rolls-Royce B40, a 2.8-liter inline-4 that Rolls-Royce built for military use after World War II. The B range was developed during the war years, completed in 1947, and delivered 80 horsepower in its 4-cylinder form. These engines ended up in military trucks, armored vehicles, and Land Rovers serving various branches of the British military. This particular one had been sitting in a crate, completely unused, for 72 years. When the crate arrived, it was already showing the damage that 7 decades of storage will inflict on a wooden box. The bottom had started rotting away, the labels were scratched up or missing entirely. Whatever sealed environment the engine might have been shipped in originally had long since failed. Moisture had gotten in and there was water pooled in the spark plug wells before he'd even attempted to turn it over. The engine was seized solid. At that point, the realistic outcome is a parts sale. A 72-year-old engine that's been exposed to moisture, with unknown internal condition and no original carburetor, most mechanics would budget their time carefully and strip it for whatever it was worth in pieces. He didn't do that. He soaked the cylinders, he cleaned out the oil pan, which had accumulated water, sludge, and something that had once been engine oil. He investigated, and what he found when he actually got inside the engine changed the picture completely. The cylinders were remarkably clean, showing only minor surface marks despite the long storage. The explanation he discovered from the original manual he tracked down online was chrome cylinder liners. Rolls-Royce had built this engine with chrome-lined cylinders, which meant they hadn't rusted the way standard cast-iron liners would have. The engine wasn't as dead as it looked. Getting it to start required sourcing spark plugs from the UK. The B40 takes a type that simply isn't stocked in American parts shops. Once those arrived, he fitted a carburetor, got the oil circulating, and sorted the starter motor. And then the 72-year-old engine that had been locked in a crate since 1952 fired up and ran. The video hit 2 million views. For a channel with a subscriber count still in the tens of thousands at the time, that number was extraordinary. It got picked up by Auto Evolution. Supercar Blondie covered it. People who had never heard of the channel found it through search, through shares, through recommendations, and a significant number of them stuck around. Because once you watch a guy patiently unlock a 7-decade-old Rolls-Royce military engine with nothing but methodical work and genuine knowledge, you want to see what else he's got. That video wasn't engineered. It wasn't a calculated play for a wider audience. He bought an interesting engine, filmed himself working on it honestly, and 2 million people found their way there because that's exactly the kind of thing people want to watch when they're tired of everything feeling manufactured. Heavy equipment YouTube isn't glamorous in the way that the algorithm typically rewards glamour. There's no lifestyle angle. Nobody's showing off a shop that looks like an Apple store, or driving a project car down a coastline highway. The shop is a shop, the machines are dirty. The problems are real and sometimes unsolvable in a single session. But this niche has something that a lot of more visually appealing YouTube spaces don't have, an audience that is deeply, specifically passionate about exactly what they're watching. The people who watch heavy equipment content aren't casually interested. They're operators, mechanics, owners, farmers, contractors, and enthusiasts who have spent real time with real machines and understand precisely how difficult the problems on screen actually are. They can't be fooled by someone who's faking competence. They spot bad technique immediately. They know when a repair is being rushed for the camera. And when they find someone who actually knows their stuff, they don't just subscribe, they watch every video multiple times, they leave detailed comments, they share the channel with people they know who work in the same world. That audience retention is the difference between a channel that looks impressive on paper and a channel that actually builds something durable. Pacific Northwest Hillbilly has been building that kind of durability since 2009. The growth was slow for a long time, painfully slow by modern standards. Sitting at 43,000 subscribers after well over a decade of work would test almost anyone's patience, but the people in that subscriber count weren't casual viewers. They were invested. And when the Rolls-Royce video brought in a wave of new eyes, those new viewers landed on a back catalog full of complete, honest, detailed projects and found something to stay for. The channel crossed 100,000 subscribers in 2024 and kept moving. 143,000 as of the most recent tracking data, with 31 million total views and numbers that are still climbing. Monthly view counts that would have seemed impossible a couple of years ago are now routine. That's not luck, that's 15 years of work paying off. There's a version of the YouTube advice economy that tells you to post every day, stay consistent, chase trends, and optimize everything. And that advice isn't wrong for everyone. Plenty of creators have built real careers following it, but it produces a certain kind of channel, high volume, broad but shallow engagement, an audience that follows the format as much as they follow the person. Pacific Northwest Hillbilly built the opposite of that. Low volume, deep engagement, an audience that follows the person because the person demonstrably knows what they're doing and has for a very long time. The channel has no viral gimmick, no recurring segment designed around a catchphrase, no merchandise drops engineered to pad revenue during a slow month. It's just one person in Hillsboro, Oregon, working on machines that interest him and filming it well enough to share. What that model requires is patience that most people genuinely cannot sustain. Posting 107 videos over 15 years means there were stretches where nothing went up for months at a time, and the subscriber count barely moved, and anyone looking at the analytics from the outside would have reasonably concluded that the channel was stagnant. The algorithm doesn't reward patience, it rewards consistency, and the conventional definition of consistency is frequency. But there's another kind of consistency, the consistency of turning up for every project from start to finish. Never cutting corners visible to the camera, never posting an update for the sake of an update. That kind of consistency doesn't show up in upload schedules. It shows up in audience trust. And audience trust, once built, is extremely difficult for a competitor to replicate by simply posting more often. The 31 million views on 107 videos work out to an average of nearly 300,000 views per video across a 15-year back catalog. That number for a channel in this niche, at this scale, with this upload frequency, is genuinely remarkable. It means almost every video the channel has ever posted has found an audience. Not just the breakout Rolls-Royce video, not just the skid steer clips that went sideways on TikTok, but the slow builds, the 16-month dozer projects, the drill press restorations that took half a day of real work to film. All of it found its people. That's the real story of Pacific Northwest Hillbilly. Not a dramatic rise or a calculated strategy or a moment where everything clicked. Just a guy in the Pacific Northwest who started filming himself working on machines in 2009, decided early on that he wasn't going to post something unless it was worth posting, and spent 15 years proving that the audience for real work done well is more loyal than any algorithm-chasing formula can replicate. The machines he works on are old. Most of them are broken when he gets them. Most of them run by the time he's done. He films the whole thing, posts it when it's finished, and moves on to the next one. That's it. That's the whole channel. And 31 million people have watched.